On a related note,
Yes.
we have labor Paul questions. Just to remind everybody who's watching. So Paul takes questions every show that he's on that have to do with labor. So that that can range anywhere from how do I organize my office, all the way to what do you think of labor after Taft-Hartley, which is a question that we have gotten before. So let us bring up the first question. Oh, this is one tailor-made for Paul. So how does one go about making a teachers union local more democratic, militant, and strategic in fighting austerity and privatization? Paul, this is right up your alley.
Yeah, and actually the person that submitted this is a former member of my union, PFT. So this is a great question. I think, what they've done in the Chicago Teachers Union and the United Teachers of Los Angeles should kind of be a North Star for us. And both situations involve challenging the leadership in elections and winning and, going from that position to deploy the resources of the union. But I don't want to say across the board that the immediate answer is always to start a caucus and challenge the leadership. I mean, I think it's a case-by-case basis. People should try to work with their union leadership where possible. But sometimes, and as it's been proven in these cases, it does come down to an electoral challenge. And in the CTU and UTLA, when they started caucuses, they were not purely for the purpose of running an election. So they were vehicles for organizing the members around the issues affecting them and showing that a model of how the union could be run differently and be more successful in fighting austerity and other issues they were facing. So it's only through doing that organizing work that a caucus could have enough credibility to win a union election. And, part of the way to do this is building community alliances with parents and students. That's something in Chicago and LA they did, perfectly. So you can get with a group of people. And I think the key is to always be organizing around the most important issues and show by example that there's another model that can get us more victories. And I think some leftists make the mistake of, if they're starting a union caucus, seeing their role as like raising the most exotic left-wing political demands. And I think it's really more about finding the issues that are most broadly and deeply felt by the members and having a credible plan to win on those and demonstrating that you can win. And I think lastly on this, I'll say you need to tie the issues that seem abstract to a concrete program. I think vague talk of democracy may not really move many union members, but if you stress it in the context of, we need to discuss these contract proposals, we need to get member input on contract proposals, or we need to really discuss strategy in a moment of action, I think that can get people moving more when it's not an abstraction about democracy or equality, tie it to a concrete issue. So that, there's no way to fully adequately answer that in a quick amount of time, but that's what I have for now.
So I have a quick follow-up question, which is in your time as a member of PFT, have you noticed any changes? Like, has it changed much since you started?
Yeah, and there is a caucus inside the union that I've been active with, and we have run for leadership a few times. So yeah, I think people there's just more members who are more involved and have certain skills that they wouldn't necessarily have, without people trying to be there to develop those skills. Mm-hmm. I think even the current union leadership has kind of gotten in its head more that they need to communicate more and be more transparent. And I think they have slowly raised members' expectations as a result of this, kind of pressure. And we should realize like it is actually very healthy for unions to have different slates, different caucuses. The United Auto Workers used to be famous for their conventions having like 3 different caucuses debating all kinds of questions. And that's just like very healthy internal culture. It's not even always about like, even if you're challenging a union leader, like I would never put even a union leader that's not great on the same level as like our class enemy. You know what I mean? Right. So it doesn't always have to be necessarily nasty. I think that's just building a vibrant culture in the union. Just like if you had a vibrant political culture means you have more than one political party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next labor Paul question. So this is about the City University of New York. The CUNY union includes profs, grad students, food workers, sanitation workers, etc. Is this a good model given these different workers' divergent interests?
So this is what we call wall-to-wall organizing. When you organize every worker in that particular place, whatever the occupation. So, and I think it is a good model because while there are different jobs with different skills and issues, I wouldn't necessarily say that their issues are divergent. And I think this model demonstrates that we actually have the same issues of better pay, benefits, and working conditions. I think it does present challenges to how to get these different occupations and people on the same page, but I think it projects a message of maximum solidarity of working people. And sometimes you have issues where in one shop there are multiple different unions. Sometimes they can be played off each other and fragmented. I think this model avoids that. So I haven't really seen many issues with this kind of model.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it either, but just from an intuitive perspective, it seems like, well, it would be much worse to divide up the workplace. Yes.
Right. Yeah, and I think part of this is also case by case. But yeah, overall, I don't see an inherent problem. Many nurses unions are doing this also. There's like health technology technicians and nurses, so like trying to organize them all into the same union.
I suppose maybe a fear would be that the like higher paid or like, higher prestige elements of the union would somehow dominate the demands that the union is putting forward. Have you ever seen that play out, or is that kind of an unfounded fear?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Just that I think maybe one fear about kind of lumping all different types of workers into the same union is that the higher paid workers or like the more elite workers their concerns would dominate the union somehow, just by, virtue of the power differential. But I'm wondering if you think that's unfounded or if you've seen that play out.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I'll even say in my union, we include so teachers, but also school secretaries, school nurses, paraprofessionals. And I think, one thing we have been working on is making paraprofessionals more an integral part of the union. So they are severely underpaid, and their contract looks way different than ours. So I don't think it's a totally unfounded danger of that happening. You can also make the counter argument that, if paraprofessionals were in a separate, smaller union, they would still have less power. And I think it still would be ideal to have a sector like that have a voice in a bigger union instead of having a separate union that might be smaller and less powerful. I don't think it's inherent that in our union paraprofessionals have to not be respected. I think that's something we can actually change.
Yeah. All right, so I think we have one more labor poll question, and this one. So this writer says, "I'm a grad student wondering how to best organize my union, as most students are nominally left-leaning, but don't see themselves as workers, but rather in a transitionary stage." And I think that that this is going to be something that comes up with every grad student union, or I don't know if you remember this, but a while ago, interns tried to unionize, or they did unionize. This was back in 2013 or 2014 or something. And the problem, of course, is that this is a group that's so transitory. By nature, these people will not be in this job in 1 to 5 years, right?
Yeah, it's tough. And, so I've never done grad student organizing. And just so people know, in general, I try to talk to other people for these questions to get, feedback. And so I talked to a friend of mine that was recently involved in trying to organize grad students. And they said, one argument most likely to be effective is pointing out how tied grad students are to the whims of their advisors. And it really highlights how precarious their position is, and that they are not, they are indeed a worker. And it kind of sets up this power relationship that is easily exploited. And I think, if you tap into the real grievances, I'm sure everyone is going to have some experience that highlights that. And also, many grad school programs, it might be transitory, but it's still, people are there for a very long time doing research or whatever. So I think stressing that, and just, especially if you're talking about adjuncts, increasingly, unfortunately, people are not going to be becoming tenured professors anytime soon. They're relying on adjunct labor more and more. And I think people know that. So you can stress that, chances are you're going to be stuck here for a while. And so you should have a union. So that's the best I can do on that one. I think if all else fails, there's always work at the post office. Say that.
Yeah, another one of your favorite topics.
Right.
Do you think there's been an increase in grad student unionizing over the last, say, 10 years? I mean, I feel like I've heard a lot about it again over like the last, 5 to 10 years. And I can't tell if that's just because, the people who work in media like know grad students, so they're like, we want to focus on this, or whether there really has been, as a result of, now 2 recessions, and again, the ongoing adjunctification of the academy, whether there has been a rise in grad student organizing. Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I don't have empirical evidence. I do think there has been a rise. And, also, I mean, part of why Trump's NLRB sucked and it mattered is that, they did offer a lot of bad rulings when it came to grad student organizing. So there was a lot of elections being held, but they were basically thwarted by the NLRB. I'll be interested to see if that changes under Biden, but it does seem like there is an uptick in grad student union organizing. So, which is, is a good thing. It's not like necessarily the most strategic sector in the world, but, still everyone should have a union. And I think especially for adjuncts, which of course is just becoming the wave of the future, like it is really important for them to be organizing and also just having a say in how the university runs.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, if the letter writer is out there and you or anybody else have follow-up questions for Paul about how to best organize, what you should do next, or just any question on labor history or anything about unions, definitely submit the questions either in the comments or in the chats. Use the hashtag LaborPaul if you hit up Paul on social media.